How you guys doing today? My name is Brady and welcome to yet another video here on the channel. Before I start today's video, I have two things to talk about. The first being the usual analytics as far as subscribers. We're almost at 2% of watch time coming from subscribers, so thank you guys so much for that. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please be sure to do that as it only takes a second and helps me out and my analytics a lot. Secondly, for my subscribers, I would like to know if there's any other content you guys would like to see on here besides Skyrim. I can do other Elder Scrolls games, for example, maybe even Fallout, or basically anything you guys want. You guys just have to let me know. This channel is for you guys, and you guys have a say in what I'm putting out as well. Anyways, now that that is out of the way, we can get into the video. Most playthroughs in Skyrim Survival Mode are based around the race you select, whether that be because of their abilities, bonuses, or powers given to them. However, if you watch my top 10 survival mode tips for beginners, you would know that playing as either a werewolf or vampire in survival mode is extremely beneficial. In today's video, what I'll do for you guys is go over which one I believe is the most beneficial. I would like to make it clear in this video that I'm assuming everyone watching has the Dawnguard DLC installed, as it changes each race and their traits drastically. I will go over both the pros and cons in my eyes to playing as each in survival mode. Before we get into the differences between the two, both beasts share one thing in common. Both are gifted two separate skill trees with the Dawnguard DLC, with each enhancing the gameplay with both beasts to another level. You can access both skill trees while in the form of whatever beast you're playing as. Also, both level up and gain skill points in a similar way, and that is by consuming enemies after killing them. However, the werewolf has a higher amount of enemies to consume to reach max level in the skill tree than the vampire lord does. The werewolf requires 160 consumptions rather than the vampire lord's 156. Each skill tree is different in the abilities that it offers to the player. The werewolf skill tree makes the werewolf a sort of warrior type of playstyle, whereas the vampire lord is used as a sort of mage or stealth type of build. But anyways, that is basically the only thing similar between the two. Next we will cover both the pros and cons of being a vampire/vampire lord. We will first go over the pros for this beast. The first thing I will say good about the vampire is the uniqueness to being one. This is not necessarily a survival mode plus, however I believe the vampire has some more options on what you can do with them and how you want to play with them. By this I mean that their skill tree opens up many abilities that you can use while being a vampire lord, something that you will see with the werewolf does not really exist. For example, you can have cool skills like Mist Form that gives you defensive bonuses while turning into legit mist, or combative skills like Vampire Grip that allows you to literally pull enemies into your grasp and choke them to death. They even have power boosting skills like Poison Talos that make all enemies take 20 points of damage when hit. Another thing I would say that is beneficial to being a vampire is that you can go in and out of vampire lord form plenty of times throughout the day. This is essential in survival mode when needing their bonuses more than once a day with the warmth boost in cold regions. It is also much easier to acquire the disease that transforms you into a vampire rather than the werewolf, which you will see as sort of a tedious process of acquiring. There are two ways you can become a vampire, the first being the most simple. That way is contracting vampirism through a random encounter in the world. There are plenty of vampire lairs in Skyrim that can be found, and coming into contact with one is all you need to do to contract the disease. The only downside to doing it like this, you will not be able to use the Vampire Lord ability. The way to unlock the Vampire Lord ability is to go through the Dawnguard questline and acquire it from one of the few ways of getting it through there. However, that is not to say that contracting vampirism is pointless without the Vampire Lord abilities. You can still get a few cool unique abilities unique to the vampire that is beneficial in survival mode. You have 4 stages of vampirism, each stage giving you different abilities and hindrances such as special spells and effects, just like any normal race in Skyrim would have. The main pros I'd like to point out being 100% resistance to both poison and disease, as well as a resistance to frost that grows throughout the stages. Next we will be going over the cons to using the vampire in Skyrim Survival Mode. The first being their weakness to sunlight. This is extremely hurtful in survival mode as your weakness to sunlight brings down your attributes, aka your health, stamina, and magicka more and more as the stages of vampirism progresses. This from being minus 15 at stage 1 all the way down to minus 60 at stage 4. Being outside in the sunlight also slows your magic, health, and stamina regeneration by 90%. This being detrimental in survival mode as you're already having your attributes brought down by the cold, hunger, and fatigue in survival mode. The second thing I'd like to point out is the upkeeping it takes to be a vampire in survival mode. The longer you go without feeding is what progresses you through the stages of vampirism. This little bit of work can be very tedious of doing it every day, especially while trying to focus on your hunger, cold, and fatigue. Say you do not want to be a vampire any longer, it can also be a pain to cure yourself of vampirism. There is an easy way of just simply becoming a werewolf that can cure you of vampirism. The tedious way is by contacting Thalian and Morthal and performing a ritual with a filled black soul gem. That's the main things I will be covering for the vampires in terms of pros and cons. Next we will be covering the werewolves and theirs. Starting off just like the vampires, we will be covering the pros. Unlike the vampires that require some upkeep, the werewolves are the opposite. They require little to none. So if you just want to get the ability to be a beast for dire situations that will not affect your gameplay really, being a werewolf is for you. Werewolves also make a melee brute that can run through enemies on their own, making a good trump card in sticky situations. Werewolves also have a plus 1900 to their carry weight in beast form, so if you are over encumbered, which is very often in survival mode with a reduced carry weight and just need a few minutes to run over to a chest and dump off your goods, this ability can be very useful in certain situations like that. Being a werewolf also grants you 100% resistance to disease as well, this being especially useful in survival where disease can be fatal. Curing yourself of being a werewolf is relatively simple, as all you have to do is contact the companions Vilcus and Farkas separately and complete the quest Purity. Also, just like the vampire, becoming the other beast cures you from the other. Next, we will be going over the disadvantages of playing as a werewolf in survival mode. We will start out with the fact that as a werewolf, you cannot gain sleeping bonuses such as well rested. This isn't the biggest deal, as those only give you boosts to experience, but gaining levels throughout Skyrim is important so that you can gain more skill points. Those small boosts go a long way, and being a werewolf, you cannot gain them. Becoming a werewolf can also be sort of a tedious process, as you have to go through the companion's questline. This can take a little extra time in survival, as fast travel is not available and it causes you to go sort of out of your way. Even when not in beast form, silver weapons still do more damage to you, though you will not be running into many enemies with silver weapons. This is something to be aware of. Werewolves' last flaw is that they can only transform once a day. This can be an issue, as you really have to utilize your power in the most dire situations. But in conclusion, between the werewolf and the vampire in Skyrim Survival Mode, I would definitely have to go with the werewolf. The werewolves do not have such hindrances that vampires can have. Sure, the vampire/vampire lord may be a little more fun to play as, but the cons really outweigh the pros in my opinion. Really, the fact of how hindered you are if caught out in the sun as a vampire is my main concern as playing as them in survival mode. Werewolves may not have the flashy powers that the vampires have, and maybe even a little bit more limited, as you can only transform once a day. But they are also more consistent and don't really hurt your playthrough in any way. And in survival mode, I believe that anything with more benefits than negatives go a long way in my book. However, that is all for today's video, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to subscribe, drop a like and a comment down below. Other than that, it's been Brady, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.